The world of kickboxing has seen countless warriors rise and fall, but few names echo with the same intensity as Mike Zambidis, a man whose story feels less like a sports career and more like a myth, carved in blood and fire, a fighter accused of bringing 4 tragedies into the ring, a Spartan spirit wrapped in a small frame but carrying the heart of a giant born in Greece in 1980. Zambidis did not enter the world with advantages waiting for him. He was not the tallest, he was not the biggest. But from the very beginning, there was something different in the way he approached pain and discipline. Training was not a hobby for him, it was survival itself, and every drop of sweat in his early years was shaping a future that no one could fully predict. He stepped into amateur fighting with a hunger that terrified opponents. 60 amateur bouts became his proving ground, and each fight sharpened him into something more dangerous than before. His early reputation even earned him a fearsome nickname that translated into a slayer of opponents, not because of hate, but because of the relentless way he dismantled anyone standing across from him. Against Shannon Forrester, he displayed precision striking that tore through defenses like blades through cloth, and when disrespect entered the ring, Zambidis responded not with words but with violence that sent bodies flying and careers shaking from that moment forward. The myth of Iron Mike Zambidis began to form, a fighter who did not just win but overwhelmed, who did not just strike but punished, and whose presence alone changed the rhythm of every fight he entered. But greatness always attracts conflict, and soon, Zambidis found himself facing fighters who tried not only to beat him but to provoke him mentally, to break his focus before breaking his guard. Yet the Greek warrior rarely broke. Instead, he transformed anger into precision and pressure into devastating combinations that left opponents crumbling under relentless force. One of his most controversial battles came against a fighter who attempted to drag him into psychological warfare, trash talk before the fight, dirty tactics inside the ring, and repeated attempts to unsettle him physically and mentally. But Zambidis responded in the only language he respected. He closed distance. He unleashed combinations, and he turned frustration into controlled destruction, the kind of performance that did not just win a fight but erased the idea of competition in that moment. As his journey continued, Zambidis entered some of the most brutal tournaments in kickboxing history, where only the strongest survived multiple fights in a single night. And here his legend expanded even further, because endurance was not just physical for him, it was spiritual. He pushed through exhaustion, pain, and damage, as if the concept of quitting never existed in his vocabulary. In one of those legendary runs, he faced opponents who were considered elite at the global level, fighters with technical mastery and knockout power. Yet Zambidis turned those fights into survival stories for his rivals, breaking them down round by round, body shot by body shot, until resistance simply stopped existing. There were moments when fights became wars of attrition, where both men stood exhausted yet refused to fall, and in those moments, Zambidis revealed something deeper than aggression, a stubborn will that refused to accept defeat, even when logic suggested collapse was near. This was not just fighting, it was endurance against human limits. Clashed with top international opponents pushed him further into the spotlight. Fights in Japan and across Asia turned into showcases of violence and resilience, where every strike carried weight and every exchange felt like it could end everything instantly. Yet Zambidis kept walking forward, absorbing pressure, returning fire, and refusing to surrender ground. But the defining chapter of his career was not just victory, it was the moments where victory was tested by elite champions of the sport, fighters who matched him in aggression, matched him in timing, and sometimes even surpassed him in technical discipline. And yet, even in those battles, Zambidis never disappeared. He stood in the fire and forced legends to recognize his presence. One of his most iconic rivalries came against a dominant force in Muay Thai, a fighter known for perfection in technique and unmatched composure. This was not a brawl. This was a chess match, played with violence, where every kick and counterstrike carried consequences, and Zambidis for the first time found himself facing a wall that did not easily break. He attacked with power and speed but met precision and control. He pushed forward with aggression but was met with calculated counters, and in that moment the world saw something important. Even Iron Mike had limits when facing technical perfection at its peak. And although he did not win that battle, he gained something equally important: respect forged in struggle rather than dominance. What followed was a transformation. Zambidis returned stronger, more focused, and even more dangerous than before, as if defeat had refined him rather than weakened him, and soon he was back on a path of destruction through divisions and tournaments, rebuilding his momentum with brutal finishes and unforgettable knockouts. He faced rising challengers, veteran fighters, and dangerous newcomers, and most of them met the same fate, overwhelmed by pressure, broken by combinations, and finished before they could fully understand the rhythm of the fight. But the deeper story of Zambidis was never just about violence, it was about persistence. A man who came from a small frame in a global sport dominated by giants, and yet refused to accept limitation as destiny. He fought like every round was a declaration that size meant nothing against willpower. By the time his career reached its peak, he had become a symbol of relentless combat spirit, a fighter whose name alone carried weight in any arena. 18 world titles, stood as proof of consistency, but the real legacy lived in the memories of those who stepped into the ring with him and barely made it out. His journey is not just about knockouts or victories. It is about a fighter who turned every disadvantage into fuel, who turned every challenge into a stage for war, and who left behind a legacy built on pressure that few could survive even today. His fights are remembered not just as sporting events but as violent stories of endurance and dominance. A reminder that some warriors do not simply compete, they overwhelm history itself with their presence. And now the question remains, for those watching this story unfold, was Mike Zambidis truly one of the most brutal fighters the world has ever seen, or was he something even rarer, a man who turned pain into identity and war into art? If his story should continue into a deeper chapter of his rise and later battles, let that be known, and tell what moment of his career shocked you the most and whether fighters like him can ever exist again in modern combat sports. And if you enjoyed this journey through the Spartan world of Iron Mike Zambidis, like the video, subscribe for more untold fight stories, and stay tuned